During the Tokyo training camp prior to national qualifiers, we get a line from Koutarou Bokuto that almost feels like it could come from a totally different character. And it's a piece of dialogue that's presented so casually and offhandedly that the average viewer or reader may not pay too much attention to it. I know I certainly didn't my first time around, but I think it's extremely characteristic of the type of writing that makes Bokuto one of the best characters in Haikyuu.
俺は3年で全国にも行ってるし、お前よりうまい、断然うまい。言われなくても分かってます。でもバレエが楽しいと思うようになったのは最近だ。
And in tandem with this, later in the series, Bokuto also talks about one of the philosophies that he holds closest to his heart. As we reflect on Fukurodani's dynamics during their match against Mujinazaka, Bokuto describes that whenever possible, he tries to think about what's fun, not what's easy. And these two aspects of his psychology and experiences are incredibly important. Let's start with the first one. Bokuto is larger than life, always positive and exuberant, full of great vibes and energy, and both directly and indirectly very kind through how he affects others. He mentors and pushes others like Suki to try and help them learn what it means to have fun. He encourages Yachi with some deceptive wisdom. He's an idol for Hinata. He is mesmerizing in many ways to Akashi. He generally boosts the mood and morale of everyone around him, both teammates and opponents, and from the minute we meet him, he is this paragon of positivity and he never wavers from that, and we love him for it. But he hints here at camp that he wasn't always this way, and the sport only recently became fun for him. In general terms, a lot of our characters throughout the story struggle to get to a state of being where they feel truly unrestricted and free, wholly confident in their skills or life path. It often takes them more or less the length of the whole story to get there, or to understand themselves enough to begin on that journey. However, in bare-bones terms, that is where Bokuto is at from the minute we first meet him, having clearly in some capacity already gone through a lot of what our other characters go through as we progress through the story. The self-doubt and the trials. Maybe Bokuto was always like this, and it would be truly fitting if he was, but regardless, very few can become as unflinchingly determined and truly confident as him without experiencing some struggles and things to learn from. And that is why, despite his lack of vocabulary and despite his outward immaturity, he's actually one of the wisest characters in Haikyuu. He knows what he wants clearer than almost anyone, knows exactly what to do to get there, knows how to not let himself become clouded by things that don't matter, and has a profound ability to feel the weight of what it means to be a self-proclaimed ace without shrinking at the size of that weight. He may not be able to articulate all or any of this without some help from Akashi, but he knows all of this. And while I don't mean to say that he doesn't grow further after this, as we see quite clearly that Fukurodani's defeat in the finals had a huge effect on him, a lot of this is present from when we first meet him, and he is much further along than a lot of the cast in his personal journey upon his introduction. Of course though, despite being one of the best players of his age, his journey was far from over as a high school senior. He had to learn to get rid of his yips and tendency to forget things that his team then complimented and compensated him for. But rather than that compensation being a weakness, Bokuto's teammates made it into their strength, both strategically and emotionally. Fukurodani is stated to be essentially nearly as good of a team when compensating for Bokuto as they are when he's in peak form. For them, doing so isn't a struggle, it isn't a negative or a worry, and that shows the awesome relationship foundation built through the Fukurodani team. Bokuto is their leader and ace and inspiration, and they were proud and empowered, not burdened, to take up the responsibility of supporting him whenever he needed it. In very brief glimpses, Bokuto is shown to have been desolate and left alone for portions of his life due to his unbelievable hunger and passion isolating him from those around him who couldn't relate and keep up. This is the loneliness of the monster, that desolate path that essentially every single one has to tread at some point. However, Fukurodani not only stick with him, but go the extra mile to support him. And this means a great deal to Bokuto. It's no wonder that he puts everything on himself to be the main man and the ace that everyone can depend on. It's almost like he's repaying the faith and trust they have in him, because he has learned that that isn't something to be taken for granted. So maybe this is what helped him to start enjoying volleyball and thinking of it as fun, despite always harboring a passion for it. And along with that, Bokuto just really loves his teammates, and they feel the same way. They feel lucky to have this monumental guy to follow, and he feels lucky to have them all backing him. Fukuro Dani's banner is one ball, heart, and soul, and this indicates how united they are as a team in this way. And while he was always exuberant and passionate, I have a feeling that this support is what allowed Bokuto to be as confident as he was, and allowed him to continue on with spirit and confidence post-high school. He's a star, but he never would have become that way without his team, and that's what makes him one of the most selfless players. He often gets caught up in individual accolades and where he places in the nation compared to the other aces, but that doesn't contradict the idea of him being a team player. And in fact, he wants to be that great in large part to help the team.
高校終わっても変わらずバレーやるし、高校最後の大会だからって今までと特に変わんないと思ってたんだけど。やっぱもっとみんなとやりたかったな。
何言ってるんですか。まだ2日目じゃないですか。3回戦、準々決勝、準決勝、決勝。まだ先は長いですよ。
うん。全部勝つ。
One of the things that Bokuto relishes most is responsibility. He thrives at Fukurodani because in spite of how well balanced the team is and how much they support him, they make it clear that he is the star and he takes that responsibility to heart to let it empower him. In the midst of his first game at Nationals, he breaks out of his rut because he sees his student, Hinata, reminding him of what he taught him about what it means to be an ace and have others look up to you. Bokuto gets through the Mujinazaka match by defying their strategy directed at targeting him, and helps a struggling Akashi by giving him confidence and breaking through to get the points they need to get him back in form. Bokuto doesn't shy away from the limelight, he always loves it. He hits these mental walls and gets depressed in games and forgets things, but funnily enough, pressure of responsibility is nothing to Bokuto. While others like Asahi and Kiryu initially see that pressure as a burden, Bokuto thrives from it, which is a great quality to have for any player in any sport. In the middle of the Tokyo training camp, Takeda surmises that Bokuto is the type of player to inspire others around him and make them feel confident and comfortable through leading by example, and that is reinforced through how he inspired Kiryu through opposition in their match and made him realize the beauty of the pressure of being the ace. Because Bokuto is one of the characters that best embodies the pure passion and childlike, enthusiastic spirit when it comes to volleyball. The court becomes his home, his place of solace where he can just be himself and express the things he feels and guide himself and those around him to glory. And it's impossible to not be moved by that. That's why his team follows him and supports him to bask in his light. That's why Hinata and Kiryu are so inspired by him. That's why everyone can't help but smile when he's doing what he loves. That's why Akashi literally went to Fukurodani to play with him. He's the beauty of the relentless human spirit in its purest form, helped by others to do what he loves most, yes, but only as a result of who he is. Strength is being free, and who is more free than Bokuto? But when it comes to the world of professional sport, this unrefined instinct, skill, and passion can only get you so far. Bokuto is who he is and lets loose all the time because that's what makes him him, and that's what makes him a player imbued with the quality and spirit that so many love to follow. But as we alluded to earlier, the fact is, he, more than anyone else in the series, realizes the profound sentiment of what it means to have so many rest their hopes on him. And he doesn't take this lightly at all. He constantly says throughout the story that he wishes to not just be a top 5 ace, but the top 1. And while he of course bears dreams of being the best because that's what he himself wants as his dream, he also does this to make his team proud. Because a better Bokuto means a better Fukurodani. And there's an honest, endearing maturity to this attitude that is very subtle, but so defining when it comes to this character. He bears what others would call a burden like a champ, and the moment when we see Bokuto's fierce monster come out is not when he's thirsting to play more volleyball like Hinata or Kageyama, nor when he's feeling desperate to prove to his rivals that he's the best. It's when he thinks of leading his teammates to glory, in what I think he views as repayment for the faith that they place in him.
全部勝つ。
This moment is by far the most serious we see him in the series up until this point, and it's no coincidence that it occurs when reflecting on how he can do the teammates that support him so much proud. Where others spiral at pressure that makes them feel negativity, Bokuto feels appreciation. When he starts panicking, those around him never give up on him because they know he'll eventually come around due to his joy, perseverance, and passion. It's such a healthy mindset, one which spurs him on to do his best and make those who support him proud. But eventually, he decides that he needs to step up full-time and stop depending on others. He realizes that he has others to thank for coming this far as a player, and wants to repay that by becoming an ace that can stand on his own 2 feet. And so in feeling the weight of defeat after Fukurodani's loss in the finals of Nationals, Bokuto realized that he wasn't as good as he wished to be to give his teammates what they deserved. They had placed second, which is a gigantic achievement, but that wasn't enough for his team, the team he loved so much. So this was his failure for not being an ace that could drag his team through the muck to win without his own drawbacks. And as always, he didn't let this get to him in a negative way and used it to empower himself to be better and, again, make them proud in the future, even if they already were proud. If we think back to that quote he gave about doing what was fun and not what was easy, he thinks here about what that means. It was not fun to lose, to see his teammates cry. It was not fun to feel the pain of defeat himself. He lives to have fun and not feel these things, so in the future he will do things so that he can create moments to cherish and be worthy of the faith that people place in him. Because they are his team and he carries their wills. It will never be easy. But it never has been, and no one is better equipped for this challenge than him. So in maturing as a player, he had to get rid of his yips, and he eventually does, taking pride in being a normal ace that can handle it all to help his team and represent Fukurodani. Being a normal ace means being someone who doesn't need to depend on others, using what they taught him to be confident, polished, and consistent. Or rather, depending on others is fine because this is a team sport, but he doesn't want to be someone that others compensate for. And while I'm sure that Bokuto still feels pain at not being able to win nationals with his team, his teammates never once blamed him at all. They felt privileged to have been a part of his journey, honored to have been pivotal people to support him on his inevitable trek to the top, and they take joy in simply being able to see him live out his dreams. That is all they need in return for their support. That is all they've ever needed. Him being himself, him being happy and doing what he was born to do. Because as we've seen throughout the series, there is nothing more beautiful than Koutarou Bokuto in flight. Exuding passion, conveying the beauty of expression and unbridled joy. An unfettered monster through and through. Many thanks for watching.